According to the University of Michigan, nationally, 1,100 college students lose their lives to suicide every year. 25% know of someone who has lost their life to suicide, while another 40% know at least of someone who has attempted. Death and trauma are constantly all around us, and yet we choose to block it out as though it doesn't exist. We live two lives, our work and school life, and then we have our more personal life, and they have a very push and pull relationship with one another. How do we choose to deal with that when there's a pull on our personal life, when our school life constantly goes first? Our society teaches us that we have to live a very fast pace, constantly engaging ourselves in a multitude of extracurriculars and activities that essentially numb us to feel anything at all when something in our personal life occurs. This is because we have to force ourselves to keep pushing on it as though it does not happen. How do we deal with that when our emotional response happens? How do we emotionally respond to something that is so great? We don't, essentially. Let's just say that there is a death in your family and you have to take time off. Let's just think about that for a second. Taking time off when essentially that time should be given to you. But anyways, you go to the funeral, and at the same time, you can't even necessarily focus on the task at hand because you know you're missing class, you have assignments, meetings, a million other things. Yet you still go, but you can't really focus. And then when you do return back to school, you not only have the massive assignments waiting for you when you get back, but you're also are dealing with the pain and trauma of losing a loved one. Yet those feelings that we have to get pushed down because we're not able to feel them when they occur. I like to think that we've all experienced moments of happiness and joy. These can last minutes, hours, maybe even a day or so. But moments like sadness and depression, these tend to linger on for a while. Why is that? Well, it's because when we are consumed by our emotions and we're hit with a mass of emotions, we cannot essentially feel them when they occur, so we have to force them down deep in our soul. So essentially what healing is allowing those emotions to come up and allowing ourselves to finally feel the things that we couldn't when they occurred. In October of 2021, my boyfriend at the time was in a severe accident, and I got a call that he had hit his head on a rock, he had had CPR performed on him, and that he was unable to feel his body. I had no idea how the paramedics assessed all of that, but all I knew is that he was not okay, and I thought for a sec that he was brain dead. At best, he would have a brain injury, but leaving him probably unable to remember himself, his parents, and even me. I was a whole state away, very first semester of college, as a freshman, not knowing anything and unable to do absolutely anything. I sat in the pain, not knowing what my future was going to look like, consumed in a constant world of fear. Fortunately, he was not brain dead, but he is paralyzed from the shoulders down and still is to this day. At the time when the accident had occurred, I had a lab exam 2 days after. I told my professor about the situation because I was hysterical. I couldn't keep myself together for more than an hour, much greater study and focus on an exam. After I emailed my professor, she had told me that she was sorry for what had happened to me, but there was nothing they could do to move around my exam and that I was forced to take it on Tuesday. Well, I took the exam and I failed it. Rightfully so. I couldn't focus on anything at the time. The only thing I could focus on was my boyfriend and the current state that he was in, being in the ICU. So not only do I have the emotional pain of what had happened to my boyfriend, but I now am doing poorly in the class. These things tend to add up, and makes someone depressed. And we fall into this cycle of not being able to catch up with anything because it is a mountain and it just keeps growing constantly. We claim that this is the real world, and yet we question why people no longer want to be a part of it. We're told, you're going to be okay and everything's fine. And those words are dead to me. Those mean absolutely nothing. It is merely a Band-Aid word, a Band-Aid to cover a bullet hole of emotions. And we say those things because we do not appropriately as a society know how to deal with something so great and so vast. We're just told to push on to the next thing and to the next thing, and then the cycle continues further. But today, I want to stop that cycle. Today, I want to spark the idea of implementing a cushion period in our education lives, in our work lives, that would allow us, at least a matter of a few days, to feel the things that are happening to us so that they don't have premature depression. A cushion period would allow a little bit of grace and a little bit of peace, and maybe even a bit of love and empathy. Allow yourself to cry, to be upset, and to feel, because as humans, we need to feel. We are forced to feel. We need to. And yet our society tells us that that's not okay. And it's an inconvenience essentially to our work and school lives because it takes away, because you're not mentally 100% there. This cushion will allow you some time to grieve, a little bit of time to heal. And if we integrate our trauma into our personal lives a little bit each day, we can focus on healing, allowing oneself to heal a little bit further. Maybe not be in such a deep depression a year later. Imagine how far a little bit of empathy could go in this situation. I'm so sorry, Sarah. What can I do for you? Trauma happens all the time, and there's things that we do not have particularly control over that still happen to us. How do we deal for those situations? Our world is not built to deal with emotional pain, but it needs to, because it happens all the time. We need a period of grace in our work lives, in our school lives, to be there for one another, to spread a little bit of love and a little bit of empathy. After all, we cannot always control the things that happen to us, but we should have a choice in how we choose to deal with them. Thank you.